Welcome to the Week 1 Salary Exploitation. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. And you took a look here at some salaries that caught your eye as far as cheap guys or guys with discrepancies across the sites. And of course, in Week 1 here, we're already kind of right off the bat with, Dak Prescott. We got Spencer Ware to talk about. So definitely a lot of value really opening up here right away.
Well, and again, they put out those salaries so early that there's still preseason games to be played in. It's becoming a trend where, injuries just hold guys out so much easier now that, the Spencer Wares, the Dak Prescotts, they kind of emerge. So, yeah, we're looking at an already super chalky Week 1.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at quarterbacks here, Dak Prescott, bare min across the sites. As you mentioned here, a matchup against the Giants is pretty juicy.
Certainly juicy. And, he steps in for Romo. Are we expecting, the efficiency Romo played with? No. Are we sort of looking at what a Russell Wilson in Seattle a few years ago type offense is going to look like? Yes. They're going to be run heavy. I don't know what type of ceiling we're looking at for Prescott, but in terms of value, in terms of weapons, he has Des Bryant on the outside that you can pretty much lob it up to anywhere in the field, red zone, all of that. He's got Cole Beasley underneath, which, well, he's not that exciting of an option. He's good to dump off for. And Jason Witten as well, who I actually think could be a nice little surprise here in the first half of the season with in terms of dump offs and who Dak's going to trust here in the starting lineup. So overall for Dak, I love the price. I think everyone does. I could see him being a super chalky play on all sites. It's a huge inefficiency on all three sites. So pretty straightforward there.
Yeah, definitely. And not even to mention, stellar offensive line to play behind. So, that just kind of helps them out and makes things a whole lot easier. You also talk about Tyrod Taylor, another guy here, fairly cheap and gets a Ravens, team defense that wasn't that great last year on the road. As far as salary-wise, how do you feel about him?
So these salaries came out when Sammy Watkins still wasn't. We weren't sure. He wasn't back practicing yet. He wasn't fully recovered. Now he's fully recovered, or so we think. At the very least, that's what they're telling us. So we go with that. And we saw that combination be dynamic last year. Obviously, the Ravens have some nice pieces, Terrell Suggs and C.J. Mosley, sort of in terms of the middle there, but their secondary was bad last year. While their offense won't be quite as bad, they got a lot of moving parts there. Nobody knows what's going on with that running back situation. Nobody really knows what's going on with the receivers, so kind of a tough situation to evaluate for their offense. I could see them running into quite a bit of trouble, and I think the Bills could, kind of run through them. So I think you're getting a bit of a discount here with Tyrod. As far as the inefficiency, it's not as great, obviously, as with Dak, but on all sites, I think he's certainly in play, at least for tournaments.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I like Taylor quite a bit, and the prices really aren't, too cheap, but they're not bad either in comparison to kind of those elite guys. So a nice mid-range swerve if you're looking to go that route.
Certainly.
As far as running backs here, obviously we kind of hinted at Spencer Ware, which you talk about here. A very cheap option, going to be a chalky guy, especially in a matchup there at home against San Diego.
Yeah, so Spencer Ware, very much like Dak Prescott, he's going to be the guy you're firing into your cash games as well with Prescott. So, yeah, things just kept building and getting worse for Charles in the last 2 or so weeks. You started hearing rumblings he might not be ready for week 1, and now, look at that, coming off an ACL, his second torn ACL of his career. He might be a game day active, but that doesn't mean much. I think we're going to be, jumping on Ware here in this matchup against the Chargers. Yeah, they got Joey Bosa, who should seemingly, shift this run defense long-term. Short-term, though, literally just got in after that holdout. So we'll see him, I don't see him being the anchor at least the first few weeks of the season. I think it's going to be a bit of a transition. The rest of this defense, not much there. And I'd imagine the Chiefs sort of at least semi-shut down this Chargers offense. So I think they're going to be ahead. Plenty of opportunity for Ware to get a lot of touches.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm in agreement. Game flow is certainly going to be something that's also in addition to Ware's overall matchup. Next one here, I mean, you talk about TJ Yeldon and obviously the Jag situation here, bringing Chris Ivory into town, pretty good passing game as well, matchup against the Packers. What kind of intrigued you about his prices?
I'm very intrigued by Yeldon this week, and I suppose that's a bit contrarian. I don't think you're going to get very high ownership on him. I just look at this matchup with the Packers. They're favored by around 5 points in Jacksonville. And I love Aaron Rodgers this year. We're kind of doing a little anecdotal week one because we don't totally know how a healthy Jordy Nelson's going to look. We don't know how all these young pieces of the Jags defense is going to look. But overall, I think Rodgers is going to be able to move the ball pretty well. I think the Jaguars are going to be playing from behind. I think that means Ivory's going to be out, and I think that means it's going to be Yeldon in on a lot of passing downs late in the game. I think you're going to get that PPR value, especially on DraftKings. That's more where I'm focused on here. FanDuel, you get that 0.5 PPR. I'm not quite as in on him there, but I love that price on DraftKings for sure.
Yeah, definitely agree. I mean, as you mentioned, that's a situation that could put Yeldon on snaps more than Ivory there. Looking at the wide receivers, obviously there's kind of a theme here with your three names, Michael Crabtree, Dante Moncrief, Corey Coleman. Those three games, I mean, looking to be pretty high-scoring affairs between both sides.
Absolutely. And the other theme probably is that even though those games are going to be high-scoring, we'll see about Moncrief. It seems like the secret's a bit out on him. But generally speaking, I mean, even at this price, I think people are going to be more on Cooper than Michael Crabtree. And I mean, I love this price on DraftKings. I love this price on FanDuel and even DraftDay at 12.9. I think he's a great value in all formats. The Saints defense, they didn't improve that much from last year. Maybe they hold them for a quarter or two, but overall, I think we're going to see, things get let loose at some point in this game. So I like Crabtree as a stacking option. I think he's a high floor and high ceiling guy in this game, especially on DK.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I mean, you look at that matchup. I mean, pretty good on both sides. I mean, so you expect kind of a high scoring game. Corey Coleman here. I mean, obviously Josh Gordon back, but not going to be back until week 5. You look at this Philly defense. They let up a ton of points to passing offenses last year.
Mm-hmm, certainly. And I think game flow could definitely be in their favor. We just look at, Carson Wentz is going to be starting. So who knows what that offense is going to look like. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for Coleman. Yeah, with Hugh Jackson, they might be trying to be more run heavy, but I envision at least a few deep shots for Coleman. And if we've seen anything from sort of the combine, his college production, his draft position, I mean, we know he's a good athlete. We know he can get deep. And he's the type of player that can win you a tournament early on because I don't think people are going to be on him at these prices. He's in a price range on all three sites where, there's a lot of mid-range options. He's maybe not the most appealing. People don't have a lot of information on him. So I think that's a perfect time to strike against an Eagles defense that, I mean, they shouldn't allow as much as they did last year just because the offense is going to be slower paced. But overall, I think this is a great opportunity to get Coleman at low ownership.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, especially when you look at those FanDuel prices between the three that you named there. I mean, Moncrief 6,200, Crabtree 61. I got to imagine that Coleman's going to be the third kind of option out of those three there.
Certainly, yeah. And even you just look at those prices, I mean, I think you initially prefer in terms of floor, at least Crabtree and Moncrief to Coleman. So, yeah, certainly interesting there. And I mean, we saw this with Amari Cooper a little bit last year. You kind of get a discount on rookies their first few games in. So if you are high on him, which I am, I think this is a nice time to strike.
Yeah, definitely. And that Coleman price tag on DraftDay at 9,200. I mean, that's certainly worth taking a shot on.
Absolutely.
Tight ends next year. I think this is kind of the you've been waiting for this, Jared Cook. Here we go.
Oh man, I've been waiting for Jared Cook, ever since he came out. And this sort of goes into there's a lot of things that culminated into Jared Cook becoming a thing. You look at your Michael Finley. athletic guy down the seam. Do I think he's ever gonna, get the role we wanted for Jermichael? No way. But in terms of what he could do for this 2016 Packers offense, I just think he's going to be super under the radar at a super cheap price. It's just going to open so much on all three sites: 7,800 on DraftDay, 2,900 on DraftKings. So again, I like Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, you like Jordy and Cobb, but I think Cook is the third wheel in this offense, and he's going to be a nice guy to stack with Rodgers, especially early in the season. Especially, I can't imagine he'll be over like 8 to 10% in tournaments, and I just think at that price, certainly a ton of upside.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, obviously, when you're coming from a Rams situation to a Aaron Rodgers offense, I mean, you expect them to be pretty solid. So I'm in agreement. Especially, I mean, how can you not like that DraftKings price tag at 2,900? I mean, that does alleviate a lot of salary.
Right. And again, Jason Witten, I mentioned him here. I think if you're playing Dak, he should have a CK there, in my opinion, but it's just a K. So he's already a little sketchy to me. But Jason Witten overall, I mean, I think we've seen a few down years. Dez took the mantle as the main guy in the offense, and they became a lot more run heavy. But with the way this is situated, I think the short passing game, especially early on, is going to be really helpful for Prescott. So I like him quite a bit. I think he's going to be an interesting, potential cash game guy even at these prices.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, we've seen that kind of with some younger QBs where they definitely take that role and kind of put into the tight end's hands a little bit more.
Certainly.
As far as defenses go, in terms of kind of cheap guys this week, I mean, there really isn't a ton to like.
No.
So I think, I mean, you picked out two fairly cheap guys here. So in terms of value, you're looking at the Packers taking on the Jags.
So again, focusing on the Packers here. Again, if you think the Jags are going to score, that's fine. But if you think they're going to be scoring in comeback mode, I think there's a lot of opportunity for Blake Bortles to maybe make some mistakes, maybe force some turnovers late in the game when the team's pressing to come back. So, I mean, we always see that those second half big defensive bumps when teams are trying to come back. And, I mean, Blake Bortles led the league in interceptions last year. I love him, but he's a gunslinger, and he's going to complete some to Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns, but at the same time, he could very viable to throw pick sixes, especially with, Clinton Dix and all those guys in the Packers secondary.
Yeah, certainly agree. I mean, looking through the prices here, I mean, certainly reasonable options to take a risk with, especially FanDuel. I feel like 4,300 is a little bit undervalued in terms of what they can do and what they did in certain spots last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Titans, more of a draft day move than anything else. But, I mean, if you're just looking at the turmoil of losing Teddy Bridgewater, no, the Titans defense isn't good. But, again, it doesn't matter if they're good if, there's no emotion here. Let's try to take advantage of the Vikings. They just got Sam Bradford in. If he's playing snaps, I mean, we know how much at this point it takes to sort of catch a whole game plan and catch a playbook, basically on the flight over, and now Bradford might be starting. So Sean Hill, Sam Bradford, yeah, they're going to run it probably 25, 30 times with Peterson. But, if they set up to stop Peterson and make him throw, I think we could definitely see some turnovers there. So I think that'll be low ownership, nice tournament move there.
Yeah, it's definitely a good point. As you mentioned, that draft day price, I mean, dirt cheap if you don't want to kind of pay up for a defense there.
Yeah. Right.
So, did anyone kind of miss the cut for you? Was there kind of one that was on your radar that didn't quite make it in?
Well, before the Spencer Ware stuff, there was a lot of James White talk. He's got a really tough matchup, though, and you really have to question how that Patriots defense or the Patriots offense is going to look with Garoppolo instead of Brady. I mean, you got to love that price for James White, especially through the sites. He's cheaper than Spencer Ware. So I do like that. But again, that's more of just a punt play. I like Ware more. So if Jamal Charles is out or just basically a barely game day active, you're going Ware over him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, tough matchup on the road in Arizona. Their defenses, they get up for those big games at home. It is a little bit scary there.
They have some scary area. Those screen passes don't necessarily go, those dump offs at the end of the game don't necessarily go for the 5 to 10 yards that we like to see. They more just get destroyed in the backfield. So, yeah, I don't know if this is a high upside game for James White, but punt play at the very least.
Yeah, definitely. So that's going to wrap things up with the salary exploitation for week 1. Be sure to check out DailyFantasyCafe.com for all the great tools and content.